On today's video, I'm going to show you how to draw a basic human face. Drawing the human face is not something I do very often. It just doesn't generally fit into the kind of paintings that I produce. Having said that, most recently, I'm working on this piece of work and I've started to incorporate a female portrait or face within the painting. And so it's made me think that perhaps I need to address this a bit more within my tutorials. I've not got a ton of experience of drawing the human face. If I have a photograph to copy from, then I'm fine with doing that, but when it comes to understanding the proportions, I'm still a relative beginner. I thought it might be quite useful for you to follow along on my journey if I'm starting as a relative beginner on that. You might find that following along with me might be the right kind of pace for yourself as well. So in terms of the basic rules, there are some things that you'll find across all the different tutorials that you can find on the human face, and there's going to be some basics that are familiar to all of these kind of tutorials. One of those would be to start off with a circular form to begin with. So once you've got a rough circle here, doesn't need to be a strong line at all, it needs to be quite sketchy because you're only using this as a general template. You draw a vertical line across, and then what you need to consider is the radius or half of the circle, and then extend it again. This is going to give you the top of the head and the chin. Now what you do next is really dependent on what kind of face you want to produce. So if you want to produce more of a masculine face with a wider chin and jawline, then or a fuller face, then you're going to obviously keep these lines quite vertical and a bit wider. Whereas if you want to show a sort of slimmer face or a more feminine face, then you might do more pinched in kind of version of that. So I'm going to do something kind of in the middle, so maybe like more of a youthful face, because what I think you'll find is that if you get someone that's quite young, then the face will generally look kind of quite similar anyway. It's only as you get older, certainly as a male, that the distinctions become more and more exaggerated. So I may refine that later on, but that just gives you the basic structure. And then what you need to think about next is finding the eye line. Now the eye line is always sort of, in an adult, is going to be somewhere in the middle, and that is going to give you the position for the eyes. Now, the next thing you need to do is decide how wide the eyes are going to be and how close together they're going to be. What you need to try and imagine is that there's space for 5 eyes going across. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal spaces, and obviously these two are going to be where the eyes are going to be themselves. So that it's very important, especially that the space between those 2 eyes is going to be the same as the eyes themselves. The next thing you need to do is divide this space in half, and it pretty much falls where the bottom of the circle would be anyway, and then divide this space in half again between there and there, and this is going to dictate where the bottom of the mouth is going to go. Then divide between here and here in half, and then divide it in half again. The next thing you need to perhaps consider is where the mouth is going to be contained. Now I've already got this dash in here to represent where the bottom of the mouth is going to go. This is roughly where the nose is going to go, as I said before. But we need to figure out where the eyes are going to be contained. So if you imagine that the center of the eye is going to be here, so where the pupil is going to go, so you can draw a vertical line straight down. And the mouth is going to go no further than these sort of points within here. This corner of the eye is going to dictate where pretty much the outside of the nose is going to go as well. So now we've got these basic things in place, we can start piecing in some of the things that now are contained within those areas. So we'll start with the eyes. I guess the eyes are going to be the most important feature. So I intend to do tutorials and videos for each of the different elements from different angles. So I may well do a eye drawing tutorial very soon, maybe a nose one, maybe a mouth, maybe ears, things like that. So please subscribe. Make sure you press the bell notification symbol next to the subscribe button, otherwise you're not guaranteed to get notified of any future videos. So if you want to make sure you are notified, please make sure you press that bell symbol. So if that's roughly where the eyes are going to go, I'm going to put a kind of circle in here to represent the main end bit of the nose, and then I'm going to put the sort of nostrils in the side of the nostrils in here. Now obviously everyone's sort of facial proportions are slightly different, whether it's male or female, whether different part of the world you may come from, your age, as well as just your genetics. So people are going to be different. So this is just a trend of people's faces. So it's not going to be precise for every kind of face that you want to draw, but some rules are useful and give you a general rule of thumb before you start drawing faces. So you know if it's too wildly out, then you know you've gone wrong somewhere. Okay, this line is going to be a good indicator or a way of telling where the the ears are going to go, because if you follow the line across, this is where the ears are going to begin, and then the ears are going to end down here as well. Again, ears are different, some stick out, some are quite flat. I'm just going to put those in very lightly and vaguely to begin with. Now these lines are quite interesting. They are going to provide the basis for where the hair is going to go. Again, you might get more of a squared off features for a male face rather than a female, but I'm just, at the moment, I'm doing something in between. So maybe it's sort of like a younger face rather than an older one. It looks especially strange because there's no eyebrows at the moment. We're just going to put something in lightly for now. Now if we come down from the pupils straight down, this will give you a sense of where the corner of the mouth was going to go. Now remember, this line that I drew is where the bottom of the bottom lip is going to go. We can draw a curve in here, take the center of the mouth down. This is where the opening of the mouth is going to go. So above that, you can have a little dip, and this is where it's going to join up. Okay, I'm just going to start getting rid of some of the guidelines that might be a bit of a distraction, just so we can see a little bit more of what we've actually got. I'm not going to get rid of them completely, I'm just going to knock them back a little bit more. Now I'm trying to show you this as close to as pencil and paper drawing as possible. Obviously I'm using digital technology, so I guess if I was doing this for real in a piece of work digitally, I could have all the guidelines as a separate layer and I could just remove that layer. But I'm trying to keep it authentic to the kind of pencil and paper experience, so that this tutorial could be useful for any kind of artist, traditional or digital. Okay, it's a rather strange looking face as of yet, but we're not finished yet, so let's try and add some more features to make it look a bit more more human. If you wanted to make the face a little bit slimmer, you can sort of bring a more distinct cheekbone here. Above the eye there is a sort of crease of skin, which is very important, and then obviously the eyebrow above that. So with the eye we're going to have a strong pupil, maybe a bit of a highlight, and then we can have some shading that comes down. So again, a strong pupil, dark line that goes around, a bit of a highlight, and then shading from the top, and then have it fading down as it goes. Okay, I'm going to have a bit more of a dip here for the nostrils, out at the sides. I'm going to have the nose sort of curving a little bit like that around the eye. So it's a bit more of a pinched in nose rather. Let's sort this hair out a little bit. So obviously the hair depends, well, it depends on the person that you're drawing. The hair is going to vary wildly. It just depends what you were aiming for. So I'm going to have a bit more of a kind of fringe coming in here perhaps. It's definitely heading towards more of a male face. I think the male faces are a little bit easier because if you tend to go for more exaggerated angles, then it tends to look a bit more masculine anyway. If you wanted more of a female face, then generally a softer, slighter kind of features lend themselves better to more of the female form. So we can get rid of some of these guidelines. Have a bit of a curve to the eyebrows. Now I'm keeping them relatively natural, but nothing too bushy. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on the ears, they just see them slightly from the side anyway. Let's go to the mouth. We're going to get this sort of Cupid's bow coming in here more. Now if it's more of a male face, then generally the lips would be a little bit less full. We're going to have a bit more shadow on the top one because obviously the bottom lip is more angled, points up towards the light, and the top one is pointed down. Maybe a little bit of shadow in the centre bit here. A bit more darkness generally appears on the top line of an eye because you have the shadow overhang, plus you have the eyelashes that accumulate at the top as well. You don't necessarily want to go too dark on these if you're drawing more of a male face and you want to keep it natural looking. Obviously if you're drawing a female face and you really wanted to show maybe more of a makeup effect with the eyelashes, I'll just add those in now so you can see how it's very easily made more feminine with a slightly longer version of the eyelashes, more distinct like that. And you can see the difference perhaps with just a slightly more exaggerated. So we might have some shading underneath the mouth here as well, just a touch. Obviously the lighting on the face is going to depend on the circumstances that you want to show the figure contained in. If there's a strong light source coming from the side, then you would use tone to sort of help further describe the shape. Now bear in mind, if you're adding shading, the forms themselves are not flat, they are round in a lot of cases, so that the shadows themselves and the shading itself will actually move and go around those forms. So you can see I'm adding the shading around the chin in a kind of more of a curved formation. That would be the same for the nose. I'm not going to go fully to town with this because I'm just trying to get some of the basics covered, but sometimes a little bit of extra refinement can really just pull out the effect better. I'm just going to play around a little bit with changing some features so if you can get a slightly different look for the face, and I might try softening it, making it look more female as well, but I'm going to push it in the opposite direction first. So I'm going to make it more angular, see what effect that has. So you could click out or push out the jaw here, make for a more angular jawline. Perhaps makes it look more masculine, ages it a little bit more. Perhaps you could add quite a wide neck for this as well. So again, if I just go back and add the softer line and narrow the neck, then you'll see that it will sort of give a more youthful look instantly. Compared to what I had a moment ago. Now the eyes are a detail that make the world of difference. So if you wanted a different emotion or a different look to the person, you could do all sorts of different things with the eyes. Sometimes, as I just showed you, when you can see more of the bottom of the eye, it looks more relaxed. Whereas obviously if you change bottom line so you see less of the iris and it's a bit more squinted, it's going to change the feel of the face perhaps. Perhaps you could age it up somewhat, add some more distinct lines coming underneath, sort of bags under the eyes. I've certainly noticed as I'm getting older these kind of features that are appearing more and more. Play around with the nose, maybe make a wider nose, see what effect that has. You could make it a longer nose, more of a pointed down so you don't see as much of the nostril shape. It's more of a flatter looking nose perhaps. Eyebrows obviously can sometimes be a lot bushier depending on the individual, either naturally or the way that an individual chooses to do their eyebrows these days. Obviously there's a lot more eyebrow art involved in people's looks now than perhaps there ever was. So I think with all human features, and the look you're going for is going to be important to experiment somewhat. You can see here simply by changing the position of the eyebrows you can start to create a different kind of expression. So more of a raised eyebrow looks more concerned or more emotional perhaps. So I'm going to have a go at trying to turn this into more of a female face now. So there's some features that can stay relatively similar, but definitely the jawline and the chin are going to have to change somewhat, as well as the neck and shoulders perhaps. Again, this is a general trend. Anything I show you now is not to say that this is the one and only way to draw a female or a male face, but we're talking about trends. So I'm just going to rub back the nose a little bit and maybe the mouth a little bit too. Get rid of the jawline. I can still see roughly where things were, so I can use it as a guide. I don't know how effective this is going to be, but I'm going to attempt to make it more female. So I'm going to pinch it in a bit more here. So we've got a narrower facial structure and chin. It's going to be softer. The hairline is going to be gentler, less angular sort of transition when it comes at the top. So we may well have longer hair. Like a slightly shorter nose with more slight nostrils, so pinching them in a little bit more. Again, obviously genetics is more of a determining factor in this. Obviously some male faces have very slight noses, more female, or some women's faces have a wider or bigger nose. So there's no right and wrong with this, but you might see a general trend, I guess. So again, I'm going to contain the mouth in this area. I might pinch it in a little bit more, make slightly fuller lips. I think those lines down here, the shoulder and neck, are slightly distracting. It makes it look a bit too masculine. So pinching the neck a little bit more, slightly gentler. Like I say, I think the female face is actually a more difficult thing to render because you have to be incredibly subtle and slight with the details. As soon as you start exaggerating it too much, it makes it look more masculine. So again, as I was showing before, maybe some slightly longer eyelashes. Bit of a cheat, bit of an easy way of making a face or eyes look more feminine, is to go for the obvious sort of longer eyelashes. But you know, there's a reason why it looks effective. I find that, like I say, drawing the female face is far less forgiving, so if you start to make some errors or get something slightly wrong with the proportions, it really can throw off the look. It can very easily look less feminine. So I'm just putting in some suggestions of longer hair there. I'm not really going to town with showing a detailed hair look. Just trying to get in some suggestion that there's longer hair. It just gives you a framework for the face, gives a slightly softer look. You get those waves that really add to the look sometimes. There. And I think that roughly starts to look a bit more female, a bit more feminine, just by those few changes. So again, it's mainly about softening the look, making slightly smaller features. I didn't do especially masculine or feminine eyebrows to begin with, again because it was quite a youthful face to begin with, so it wasn't necessary to change that dramatically. But obviously the kind of face that you're going for, kind of portrait that you're wanting to show, will determine how far you push these different features. It's the kind of thing, it's good fun actually. I mean, like I say, I've not done a lot of this kind of thing, but it is good fun to see that how a subtle change, a little bit of a pushing it one way or the other, can really make a difference to the feel of the actual picture itself. Again, I'm no expert on this, so if it comes to trying to render a happy or a sad or an emotional or angry face, that is something yet that I need to explore, and that could be the subject matter for a future tutorial. But I'm just starting out at this point, and I hope that this has been useful for some of you, and please expect a more in-depth tutorial about more refined features later on, hopefully. I'd just like to take this point to say an enormous thank you for those people that have stuck with me over the last couple of years. I've literally gone from 50 odd subscribers to now just having passed the 50,000 subscribers in a couple of years. I never imagined that it would get to this kind of number, and it just seems to be growing on a daily basis. So I cannot thank those people that have stuck with me for the duration of that time, and obviously thank you to those people that have just joined me and started watching my videos as well. It's massively encouraging and motivating personally, and it's really spurring me on as an artist. Keeping that spark of inspiration alight is sometimes difficult when you're working in isolation, and I have to say that having feedback and people encouraging me, people getting something out of my tutorials and enjoying my art is been a huge motivating factor for me personally. So I cannot thank you enough, and I only hope that I've managed to inspire and help a few other people along the way as well. So if you want to make sure that you are subscribed to my future videos and you get notified, please take the little bell notification next to the subscribe button. And if you want to learn about ways to support me and get access to more information about myself, then please visit my Patreon page, which is linked down in the description. Otherwise, check back here again. See you later.